guys, welcome back to my channel. So we are doing a sketch with me video today, and in this video I first of all wanted to showcase the new sketchbook that I got. This is a 6-ring binder that I got off on Amazon. So it's the aesthetic transparent looking one, and it's currently housing all the pages, sketch pages that I've done so far, and will be housing the future ones. As you can see, it's not very thick. I just started, but at the end of the video I will be doing a flip through of the pages that I have there so far. So if you're interested in seeing that, you can skip to the video or stay tuned for the rest of it, because I will also be talking about 5 tips that I use to kind of boost my creativity and make drawing a lot more fun. So if you're interested in seeing how I approach my drawing, let's get on with the video. Alright, so before we get into the tips, I wanted to mention a couple of things. The first thing is these tips work for me. They may not necessarily work for other artists or other people who are getting into art or are doing art, just because it plays into my style. I am very cartoon based. A lot of my work is very exaggerated, very cartoony, not realistic at all. I guess if I sat down and tried really hard, I can do a realistic portrait or illustration, but for the most part, my style is very cartoony. So these tips may not work for somebody who is doing a lot of realism. They may not, but I think it really works for my style because I cater these tips to how I approach things. So as I am illustrating or as I finish sketching out this dog, you've probably seen the reference image in the beginning. It's just a funny looking angle of I think that's a little Italian greyhound dog. Alright, so the first thing is exaggeration. That's it. Exaggerating the eyes of the character, the way they dress, how big their head is, how big their arms are, exaggerating 1 or 2 things in the illustration. I find that tip is really helpful when I'm trying to sit down and draw something or draw something from reference. To make something a bit more interesting is exaggerating something. Thinking about it now, that can be put into realistic illustrations and stuff, but it really works well for what I do because sometimes I can't come up with something interesting in an illustration, so I will just sit down and exaggerate maybe a character's head size. I really like doing that. So a lot of my drawings have characters with either really big heads or really big mouths, something like that, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And I think it really is shown in this illustration of this Italian greyhound. The reference photo itself is already kind of exaggerated because of the angle of the photo of how the dog's being taken. Its nose is really big, but I really exaggerated the size of the dog's eyes, made it a lot more bigger, and made his expression a little bit more, what's the word? Desperate looking, I guess. So one tip that I use a lot is exaggerating something, and I'm pretty sure if you've attended art school, done an online art course, even did drama, exaggeration is a really important thing, and I'm pretty sure you hear it a lot. Exaggerate the features of something, exaggerate the mood of something. So exaggeration is one big tip that I use when I'm trying to come up with illustrations. The next tip that I use a lot is glancing at my reference. I use reference a lot in my illustrations when I'm coming up with an idea, when I'm drawing in my sketchbook. I use references a lot. But there was a time when I was using references so much that I would kind of copy the reference. So I would have it on my phone or on my computer as I'm drawing and kind of look at it all the time, every second, to the point that my drawing or the illustration that I was doing kind of lost its organicness and just became what the reference photo was. So I started to just glance at my reference photo. Sometimes I would glance at the reference photo for a couple seconds, maybe a minute, and then I would kind of turn off my phone. Because this is especially easier if you're drawing stuff that you've drawn before. Like I've drawn a bunch of dogs before, and I've drawn a bunch of cats before, and a bunch of people before. So I've been trying to be just more mindful about how I digest my references, so it doesn't really go into the illustration and kind of tarnish what I'm trying to create. So I have the dog illustration, the photo of this dog with glasses. I thought it was really cute. I have it in front of me, but I just kind of glance at it from time to time. I don't copy it straight out. It can get really difficult to rely on your reference. It becomes a crutch, and then when you're trying to draw something straight out of your mind, you just can't come up with anything. It's because you're so caught up in the details with references. So one tip for me is to just kind of glance at your reference photo. It's a different story if you're trying to study something. So if you have a landscape in front of you, or if you have a landscape as a reference and you want to study the landscape, then that's a totally different story. But what works for me, if I'm trying to come up with an illustration and kickstart my imagination, I like to glance at a couple of reference photos, maybe have them in a window on my phone or on my computer, and just look at them really quickly and then look away and just come up with something as a sketch. So this illustration right now, or this sketch of this dog with sunglasses, is really similar to the reference photo, but I stopped relying on it as soon as I went into color. So yeah, it's kind of it's a balancing act, but it's really good not to have a reference as a crutch, because it gets rid a little bit of your creativity and the organicness of your thoughts, in my opinion. So that is the second tip. Just glance at your reference photo and not be caught up in the details. Another thing I wanted to mention with the tip of glancing at your reference photos is that if you do it enough times, you will be able to learn to grab the main information from your reference photos. So the main points of all the reference photos that you scroll through or select, you'll be able to take it in really quickly in your brain and put it into your sketch or your illustration. And you can do that, from multiple reference pictures. So that's why I kind of like to look up a reference on Google and scroll through Google Images, kind of seeing what I like and what I don't like, and then putting that into my illustration. So if you do it enough times, I think you'll be able to glean the main parts of the reference photos right away. And that comes with practice. So if you do it enough times, you'll be better at it every time. So my third tip, which I think is the hardest one for me at least, is being fearless with your drawings. I kind of stand by this tip because it's something that has taught me so much throughout my time with drawing. If you are afraid of drawing buildings, if you're afraid of drawing backgrounds, feet, hands, draw them all the time. Be ambitious with your illustrations. I guess that's also a separate thing, being ambitious and being fearless. I guess being fearless just means if you're afraid of drawing something, you should draw it out. Don't hide the hands, don't hide drawing the feet, because every time you draw the thing that you're afraid of, you learn something more, and the drawing that you did may not necessarily look the best, but the next drawing you'll do, you'll be even better. I guess it's also just practice. So being fearless has really helped me a lot with drawing, because now I'm not really afraid of drawing hands or backgrounds. I still hate drawing backgrounds, but I can do them. They're not that scary anymore. The more I draw it, the less I fear it. And that also is kind of tied into what I said earlier about being ambitious. In 2018, I did a challenge where I drew a full illustration every day of November, and that experience was really fun, really hard, but also really helpful, because every day I tried to be ambitious with what I was going to draw. I wanted to do a lot of detail in every drawing. I wanted to do a concept in every drawing, and I still really love those drawings, and they taught me so much. So being fearless / being ambitious with your illustrations really helps, and it may not create the best illustrations at that time, but you will learn so much, and every illustration you do afterwards will just be even better. So third tip, being fearless and being ambitious. Alright, so this fourth tip may not be new to you guys, but it's working with themes. So if you sit down and you can't come up with anything to draw, you can look up a lot of stuff online about, a drawing prompt or something like that. I personally like to draw a lot of horror stuff, and I also like to draw food. I love drawing food, I love eating food, I like watching horror movies, and I like making up horror stories. So a lot of the themes in my work deal with food and horror. But yeah, if working under themes is really helpful, especially, we have a lot of prompts throughout the year for drawing. We have, Drawloween, we have Sketchsember, we have that thing in October that happens. So yeah, it's easier, and it's really fun to create a bunch of drawings within a certain theme. And also, I do a lot of series of illustrations. It's just easier to just sit down and I'm gonna be drawing food for a while. So that really kind of kickstarts my my brainstorming. I like drawing food, so I'll just create anything under that, and then you kind of go from there. I work with themes a lot, so I wanted to incorporate that tip into my list. Working with themes, it's really fun. It's much easier than sitting down and trying to come up with something off the cuff, off the top of your head. Work with a theme. Work with one word. It's really cool. I'm looking at a lip balm right now. I can draw different flavored lip balms, and that sounds really fun actually. So I may do that. So fourth tip, working with themes. My fifth and very last tip is again nothing new. If you are an illustrator or an artist who is in social media, I guess nowadays it's really hard to be not on social media as an artist, especially if you have it as a career. Alright, but my fifth tip is to limit your social media intake. And that may be hard to do, again, especially if you rely a lot on social media for your career. But I tend to take breaks from social media. I take breaks exclusively on the weekend. On the weekend, I go on Instagram maybe once. I go on Twitter maybe 3 times, but during the weekend, I really limit my social media intake, and I just do the things that I want to do. So usually I would watch a lot of Netflix shows and movies. I would sketch a lot. But yeah, I wouldn't really be on Instagram unless I really wanted to post something. But I've really pared down my social media intake, especially when it comes to art, because I tend to compare my art style and myself to other artists. So limiting my social media intake, I feel like makes me a little bit more creative because I have more time with my thoughts instead of focusing on what other people's thoughts are or other artists' thoughts are. So I take a nice social media break over the weekend. I really limit the amount of stuff that I look at, and I think about what I like. So I tend to sketch a lot. I do a lot of my art journaling over the weekend. So yeah, it just helps me come up with, fresher ideas because I'm thinking in my head and not on other people's, like looking at other people's stuff and have that go into my brain. So limit your social media intake once a week. Start with once a week. I like to do it over the weekends. I just take a real break. I said break so many times. So that is my last tip. Limit your social media intake. It helps. Alright, so those are the 5 tips that I use to boost my creativity and make doing art fun. You might have heard these tips from other artists that you follow or have watched before. I'm pretty sure of it. But these are the tips that really work for me and that I use when I sit down to try and come up with an illustration, sit down and do some sketching, or even come up with new comic ideas and stuff like that. So I hope it does help somewhat. But again, I'm sure you've heard it from other artists before. So before we get into the end of the video and the flip through, I just really wanted to quickly talk about the drawings in these, sketchbook pages. They may not necessarily look like sketches because I'm doing a lot of, coloring and finishing, but I've accepted the fact that I want to make my sketchbook really nice with a lot of finished illustrations. At the flip through at the end of the video, you'll see that there are some sketches in there, some more unfinished work, but for the most part, I like to finish a lot of my drawings, a lot of my ideas. I like to finish them. So it's just a matter of preference. I don't really like my sketch work because I want to finish my sketch work. I think it's because when I was, starting out with drawing, or when I was taking drawing seriously, I really hammered into myself that I want to make finished work. So now it's hard for me to leave work unfinished. A lot of my sketches become finished stuff. So so a lot of these illustrations are going to be more polished than what a sketchbook should be, as I guess some people look at it. But I really enjoyed how the pages turned out. And I had a lot of fun drawing the dogs and the cats. I decided to go with a different style for this last cat here. I wanted to do kind of like a wet cat look, so hope that was sort of successful. And here is the here's the reference photo for that. So again, not like a clone of the reference photo, but I took the idea of the big yellow eyes and I put that into the illustration. And now I'm using these new this new stamp set that I got at Deserres, which is an art store. I've been kind of treating my sketchbook almost like an art journal, where I spruced it up with these stamps so far. So I thought it was really cute, so I decided to stamp up some words in here. Alright, so I will check back with you guys when we're doing the flip through. I wanted to explain some of the illustrations found there. So let me leave you for now. Watch me stamp these guys, and see you in the flip through. Alright, we are now at the flip through part of this video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me do the sketching. So now I'm showing you guys the first few drawings that you see me draw. You saw me draw those illustrations, the one with the witch and the cat. There's my cat character there on the left, Kevin the purple cat. This spread I don't really like, but I wanted to kind of play with gouache. And then this spread on the left side there, you can see me, I covered up a sketch that I did not like, so that's what happened. And then this is the final page for the cats and the dogs. The pages are supposed to be flipped because the text doesn't make sense, but yeah, that's it. That's my really quick flip through. We're probably gonna have more flip throughs as I do more of these sketch with me videos, so I hope you enjoyed that and I hope you got something from those 5 tips. Okay, so that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed this sketch with me, and I hope you got something from those tips that I shared. And I look forward to filling this sketchbook up with you guys a little bit more. So yeah, next week it will be either another art journal video or another drawing video. Whatever I come up with, we'll see. But I will see you guys in the next vlog, which is this Friday. Or if you don't watch those, I'll see you guys in the next art video next week. So have a great rest of your week and I'll see you then. Bye.